What's up, YouTube, and welcome to this week's rendition of Monday Market Watch. I'm your host, Juju, and this is the show where we go over all of the notable market movements in Gods Unchained. So this week happened. We are now like a couple days into Light's verdict release. Top deck in weekend ranked was a card draw magic deck, I believe. So that was interesting. In terms of market movements, nothing crazy so far. We will go over the Light's verdict cards at the end of the episode, so feel free to go ahead and stay tuned to the end of the show till we look at that. I do have a couple of announcements. So I'm going to start streaming again. Last weekend I streamed my weekend ranked, and it was pretty nice. So thank you to all the viewers that came out and supported the channel. If you haven't dropped by, or if you haven't subscribed or followed me on Twitch, feel free to do that. The video should be in the description. Wait, what? The video should be in the description. My Twitch URL should be in this video on the bottom right-hand corner. Bottom left-hand corner, so feel free to check that out, yeah? Without further ado, let's get started with the cards, shall we? First up for the death cards, we have Eva, Baroness of the Dead. This is your 2-mana 2/3 afterlife. Transform a random creature that costs 3 or less into a 1/1 zombie and give it this afterlife? Oh, that's a little bit of a typo there. Give it this afterlife. No, that makes sense. You give it, aka the zombie, this afterlife. All right. So I personally really like this card. It's a great anti-aggro card in control death decks. When I played Board Wipe Death, I would always try to mulligan for this card during the aggro matchup, and it, quite frankly, stops decks in its tracks if it doesn't have anything to do. It'll either force your opponent to stop playing minions altogether, or just suck it up and, have their 3 or less mana cost minions turn into zombies the turn after. Synergizes really well with the Blood Pact, I believe. I don't know if it's Blood Pact. I think it's the God Power where you destroy a creature with 1 health and you gain 1 health. Synergizes really well with this card once you get the zombies online. Just be careful though, because your monsters aren't immune to this effect, so you have to be really careful with ordering. Cheapest you could find this card right now is $5.02. Volume looks pretty well, and it's been on a steady increase. Solid card for the death class. Next up, we have Necrosceptor. This is your 3-mana relic, 0/1 durability. At the end of your turn, summon a 1/1 zombie with Leech. If you are frenzied, give that zombie +1/+1. After a zombie enters your void, your opponent loses 2 favor. So this card has also been on a steady increase. You can also see it a lot in lower ranks, which I thought was pretty interesting. This card is really annoying if you don't have any relic removal. Essentially, your opponent gets to play a 2/2 zombie every turn. They have to proc Frenzy first, but it's pretty easy to proc Frenzy, especially in a zombie deck. So it's not really an issue, but I mean, you get so much value off of this card, right? And the fact that your opponent doesn't get a significant amount of favor for destroying those zombies means that you can essentially swarm your field without having to worry about giving your opponent extra favor for something like that. Anyways, the cheapest you could find this card right now is $6.82, and it looks like it's on a steady increase. So be on the lookout for this card. I mean, I think it's a solid card, one of the better cards out of the Divine Order set. Moving on to Deception cards, we have Sleep Dart. This is your 2-mana spell. Target creature goes to sleep. It gains burn +3. This is from the Genesis set. It's a common, so it's actually pretty good in terms of card power per se. You get to essentially burn a creature to death while it sleeps, stall it out. You can even play this on stronger creatures too, but ideally you'd want to play this on a creature with less than 3 health. The price did spike from $169 to an average of $249. The cheapest you can find this card right now is $251. Yeah, we do have some resistance though at the 254 level, and I want everyone to be aware of this. So it looks like this card has reached its ceiling. Just a heads up, if you're looking to buy any sleep deception cards. But I really like this card. I think it's actually a really solid choice. Next up, we have Lantern-Bound Fae. This is your 5-mana 3/4 Nether, order 3. After a friendly creature's order reaches 0, pull this into your hand and reduce its cost by 1. Roar, deal 3 damage. Solid card. The only downside is that it's 5 mana, so you have to wait a couple of turns to play it. Also, 5 mana 3/4 means it's really understated, but the fact that you get to recycle, and if you can get consecutive amount of order effects to go off, hey, this card does really well. Synergizes obviously with order cards, and it's also another, so that has it going for them, right? The cheapest you could find this card right now is $2.51. It peaked at $3.25. Not much to say here, but solid card nonetheless. For our light cards, we have Devout Cleric. This is your 1-mana 1/3 Roar. Give the chosen one 1/1 and put it one card closer to the top of your deck. It's a Genesis set, epic, so it's pretty rare. In terms of pricing, you have cheapest, it's $13.28, and it's spiked around that area. We do see an increased amount of activity, probably because of all the Light's Verdict type with the chosen one. We do see a little bit of resistance at the $14 mark, so be wary if you choose to buy out this card. Next up, we have Warp Engineer. This is for our Magic cards now. So Warp Engineer is a 2-mana 1/3 Roar. Choose a card that costs no more than your total unlocked mana gems. Reduce its cost by 2. So, I mean, this is no surprise here. Warp Engineer is a really good card, and it always goes through its cycles with spiking. In terms of why it spiked, there are actually a couple of reasons. One, it got featured in the Divine Coronet deck with Copper Pitch. Go ahead, check his video out on his channel. He uses this card to basically summon a Divine Coronet and clone it so that you can get multiple copies of a 9 health Divine Coronet. It's pretty crazy, in my opinion. He shows a pretty crazy game. I don't think the deck is broken by any means. I think it's very susceptible to dead draws, but definitely something to consider. However, the other deck that this card was featured in was the 17-win Magic deck this past weekend, ranked in the Mythic rank. It's basically card draw Magic, aggro Magic. You use this card to make your cards cheap and then play them. And that's really strong in a game, especially with Gods Unchained, yeah? So this card is really good. The only thing is it can force you to kind of burn your hand pretty quickly, so you do kind of need to supplement your deck with a little bit of cycle and draw. But in terms of like the amount of tempo you can get from this card, you get a lot of tempo. The cheapest you can find this card is $4.25 right now. It peaked earlier today at $4.59. Next up, we have Clone. Clone is a 2-mana spell. Copy the lowest card cost creature in your hand. I mean, this card enables OTKs. Go figure. It peaked at $100.50 or $100.50, $150.92. Cheapest you can find this card is $131.08. What do I think about this card? Well, it's a Genesis set epic, so it's going to be pretty rare. If the devs follow through with their promise to keep Genesis cards like evergreen, this card is probably going to be a problem for the game designers moving forward, because it's going to limit the types of creatures that they can design, right? Because hey, if you play this card with a really strong creature that can be abused, well, especially in a class like Magic where you can discard cards with Warp Engineer and so forth, that can be a problem, right? And that's why there are so many OTK decks within the Magic like class right now. It's because this card enables OTKs. Is it fun? Yeah, it's pretty fun. Not gonna lie. I love playing OTKs, and this card, I love combo decks, and this card makes really busted combos. Is it going to be fun for game designers? Probably not, especially if they don't want to make a broken deck in the Magic class. Anyways, in terms of balancing, this card is a nightmare. In terms of investment, I say it's pretty good. The fact that it's reaching this price level in this bear market makes me wonder if this card is going to increase even further when we do see like a little bit of like a rally or a bull market. So I would definitely try to, not financial advice, maybe look into this card. Maybe. There is a risk though when you invest in this card, because it, from a game design standpoint, this is a nightmare. Like if I was a game designer, I would want to Hall of Fame or reserve list or put this card in whatever equivalent Gods Unchained will develop in the future. That's just me, my 2 cents. I'm just a guy making YouTube videos about an NFT card game. So take that advice with a grain of salt. Next up, we have Lost in the Depths. This is your 1-mana spell. Target a creature or obliterate cards in your deck with the same cost as that creature and draw a card. So this card is very good in terms of thinning your deck out, removing useless cards, enabling some OTK combos. This card does the job. I like it. And I mean, it's pretty busted, especially in a class like Magic where you can discount cards so regularly. The current price is right now is the lowest price is $63.38. It peaked at $69, nice, and 80 cents over the weekend. Really like this card. It has a lot going for it. It's a Genesis set Epic, so there's some scarcity there. Yeah, I mean, overall, very solid card. It's also not broken per se, so it carries a little less risk than Clone, but yeah, I think it's a solid investment if you choose to invest in it. Okay, next up for the wild class, we have Jersemi Freya's Spear. This is your 3-mana 3/3 Amazon. Roar and Afterlife, give regen +1 to each other friendly creature. This card saw a crazy spike over the weekend. It went from $1.39 to an average price of $2.65. Right now, the cheapest price you can find is $2.42. What do I think about this card? I mean, I think it's actually a pretty potent 3-drop in the right deck. I mean, obviously it has Amazon support, so it's going for that. And there's some regen synergy, so if you ever want to run regen nature, this is probably a staple. But with all the heal nature going on, this card helps those decks. Like if you're running a Dagon or a Dahlia or a Silk Spite, you'd probably want to run a Freya for sure. Next up for our war cards, we have the Gods Unchained. This is your 5-mana spell. If you have 100 favor or more, destroy your opponent's god. This is obviously like a win condition card for a meme deck. What do I think about the card? Well, I mean, we do see an increase in activity, so I think it has something to do with the cosmic shift that's supposed to be happening now in a couple of weeks. There was a hint released about the gods losing their chains, so this could be one of the cards that will be bought out for the shift. In terms of what I think about this card, obviously it's a win condition for a meme deck. No, this can be kind of splashable in a control deck. Maybe. I don't know. But anyways, this card is good. When you build a deck around it, obviously, right? Is this meta relevant though? I'd probably say no. Unless we're running into like fatigue matchups where it's a control deck versus a control deck frequently, and each player is frequently getting to like the last cards of their deck, maybe this can be an alternate win condition you can include in your control war deck. But other than it being meta relevant, it's not really meta relevant. Anyways, the cheapest you can find this card is $3.36, and it peaked at around $4.36 on October 1st. Okay, on to our neutral cards. We have Valve Champions. This one had the biggest spike out of all the neutral cards this week. 2 mana, neutral spell, pick 1, draw a card, gain 7 favor, deal 2 damage, or heal your god for 4. This card is super versatile. You've probably picked it from the Sanctum a couple of times if you've played Gods Unchained, which I hope you have if you're watching this video. this is a pretty versatile card. I mean, if you're drawing a card, it can gain you favor. You can deal 2 damage to your opponent or your opponent's creature or you, yourself even, and you can heal your god. So it can provide a little bit of everything, and it's pretty good value for 2 mana, in my opinion. The cheapest you could find this card is $2.24, but it peaked all the way to $3. Wow, $3 on October 1st. So, I mean, honestly, I think this card, at least in my experience, whenever I build the deck and I need some form of removal, burst heal, or, I mean, cycle, this card is always, or 2 of the 3, this card is always something I consider because of how versatile it is, especially when you use a deck slot or a card slot in a deck, right? So it's something to consider. It's by no means a broken card, but it is a pretty well-balanced card in my opinion. Next up, we have Glass Cannon. This is your 3-mana 7/2 Atlantean with Blitz. Roar, summon a 3/3 Iron Atom for your opponent. So I've thought a lot about this card in the past, just because I've been like messing around with certain decks, and this effect can be really useful, especially if you can find a way, or I don't know, the other cards in your deck synergize with dealing with a 3/3 Iron Atom for your opponent, right? Like maybe you run Blade of White Plane, or maybe you run the 3-mana 3/2 Relic in the War class with God Blitz, right? If you can find a way to deal with this Iron Atom without trading the Glass Cannon, you can swing the mana advantage in your favor. So say your opponent summons like a 6-mana minion that's a 6/6 or a 5-mana 5/6, for example. And you have a 3-mana card, maybe it's a 3-mana Relic, and then you play this Glass Cannon, and then you play another card to deal with whatever, right? You end up with a little bit of a tempo / mana advantage by playing this card and dealing with the Atom without trading it with the Glass Cannon. It does have potential, and you know it's a 3-mana 7/2, which is kind of nutty in my opinion, especially if you have, I don't know, Deep Sea Rover, something that can, you know, give it protected while it has Blitz. So that's an interesting thing. It is an Atlantean, so it has access to Atlantean support. The card spiked at around $33 on October 2nd and October 3rd, and the cheapest you can find it right now is $33.73. The volume is pretty scarce though, so we'll have to see if this price holds. And finally, for our last card, before moving on to our Light's Verdict set, we have Namebinder Zalzi. This is your 1-mana 1/3 Nether. At the end of each turn, if your God Power is active, change it to a random common one. I think this card has some sort of potential in certain decks. Like this card reminds me the most of Sir Finley in Hearthstone, where it's a 1-mana 1/3 where you get to change your God Power. However, the thing with Sir Finley was you get to delve your God Power, and with this card you don't. It's a random. So it's very interesting to me, but if you can get to a point where, you know, this card stays alive and you know, see a God Power that you like and you use it for a significant amount of time, this could be good. Or it turns into a God Power you like and you trade this off so it never has to activate its effect again. That could be a little interesting. It also has a Nether tag, so it synergizes well with Nether cards. This might be a thing, you know. In terms of the price though, it spiked from $11 to $16.28. Obviously there's a spike in volume here. You see like it's being less than 1 card a day is sold, and then all of a sudden on one day it's 15 cards sold. So that can mean that, you know, someone bought it out. Will this price hold? I'm not too sure. Maybe it will, but the cheapest you can find it right now is $16.18. So it's something. Okay, now we are moving on to our Light's Verdict cards. We'll just go all, and then we'll just choose a set. Light's Verdict. Go price chain. No, we'll go price. All right, y'all. So going over all of these, Pure Knowledge, End to War, Empire Reborn, Lights, they're all under $5 right now for the Meteorite copies. Pure Knowledge has some use. I think it's pretty slept on. Like, these three cards are pretty decent, right? The only problem is that there's going to be more supply of these cards released, so I would wait a couple of weeks before we really see the price settle and reach its floor. However, I mean, these cards are really useful, so if you think this price is, legit, I mean, I don't stop yourself from buying them, really. The Light Seeks the Truth is next. Forged in the Light, the Divine Coronet is also the mid-level cards, I'd say. Out of these three cards, I mean, these are the chosen ones. Support. Divine Coronet is the most interesting one, just because of its effect. And, I mean, hey, if you can play this card on turn 4 with 9 health, pretty darn good, in my opinion. Pretty darn good. So, definitely something to... I mean, I think this card is the most interesting one out of the three. The other two are just more like, chosen one support, and they're not... like crazy cards by any like margin. So yeah, moving on to the next couple of cards, we're going into our chase cards now, and this is the Blade of White Plane, Martyr of White Plane, Therial the Fallen. Once per turn, after a weaker enemy creature is destroyed, draw a card. Obviously Blade of White Plane is probably the best card out of this whole set. Yeah, it's just really freaking good, and I think because of this card, mid-range decks are going to start seeing a resurgence in the meta. It just does so much for 5 mana, and the only thing that has going against it is its stat line, which is 4/4 for 5 mana isn't too... It's not bad, but it makes it susceptible to things like Canopy Barrage and Star Shard Bolt. So, but this is probably the best card in, out of the entire mini set. Martyr of White Plane is at 84.23. See, this is an interesting one because it's seeing like an increase or a spike in price, which makes me believe someone discovered something about this card. I'd look into it. I mean, it stacks your deck with multiple Olympians. You get to reuse a card. It's a taunt. It's a frontline that's, somewhat recurring. So technically it's a 3 mana 2/2 that nets you another card. Yeah. I mean, it has some potential. I'm pretty sure like there's some use for it. I just haven't thought as critically as, others. But maybe someone has figured something out. You never know. If you do know, leave a comment in the section below. So, next up we have Therial the Fallen. This is the other chase card in the set. 7 mana 6/9. Nice. Roar. Delve the Theric Cultists. The Theric Cultists are pretty versatile in terms of use. The fact that this could be a finisher, right? For control decks if you need it. You summon the 7 mana card, replenish some resources, maybe put your opponent in a bad spot. And, this card shines in top decking situations. So I would probably play this in an aggro or mid-range deck for sure. Anyways, did I miss anything? Yeah, where the heck is the shines on us all? Huh. Are there no shines on us all? No, that can't be right. Let's go to Meteorite. Yeah, there's no shines on us all on the marketplace right now. That's a little weird. And Forge New Bonds. Hey, Forge New Bonds isn't even in the marketplace right now. That's pretty interesting. These cards are on the decline. I think these are the... Shines on us all is the worst one out of the set. Forge New Bonds, there's some mean potential with this card. Strictly because you can, I don't know, if you run an Orfeo in a Deception deck, which is 1 mana, and you play this card, get the Orfeo back, switch it with a high cost card in your hand, aka Polyhymnia, You can play the Iris, which is a 9-mana deception card. You can play, you know, Blessed Ibis. You can play so many things to get it to 1 mana. That can be very troublesome for your opponent. So definitely something to think about when playing this card. Oh, and also the fact that if you do this with an Orfeo, you play the 1 mana card, and then the Orfeo gets summoned anyways. So the fact that it gets like a crazy, you know, crazy cost increase doesn't really matter. So that's something to consider with this combo. Anyways, that's pretty much it for all of the Lights Verdict cards. I just love Blade of Whiteplane. I think this card is so good, and it's a much needed card in Gods Unchained right now. So props to the devs for making this card. I love it. Anyways, that's it for the Market Watch for this week. Thank y'all for tuning in. If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel for more content. Like the video, and also leave a comment below. Just say what's up or anything like that. This is my second video coming back. It feels good to be back. In terms of the Twitch channel, feel free to tune in or give me a follow so you can see whenever I'm online and playing Gods Unchained. And then be on the lookout for more content. I think I might want to start doing guides again. They take a while though. They take a lot of thought. So I want to make sure I ease into it. And when I do release a guide, it's quality. So, but thank y'all for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Hope y'all have a great Monday, and see y'all next week or in the next video. Peace.